Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Toastmasters Unplugged episode 2. This is live from District 71 Toastmasters here in the UK and Ireland. My name's Nigel Smith. I'm currently president at PMI UK Changemakers, a project management club, actually online, but I'm also a member of Birmingham Boring Speakers here in the Midlands. I'm coming to you live from Worcestershire. And I've got a panel of 4 great guests here this evening. And this is all about the younger voice, the younger demographic of Toastmasters. We're going to go on a journey tonight to understand what brings these guys into Toastmasters. What do they get from it? What do they take back into their career? And maybe what do they bring back into Toastmasters from their experiences in the wider world? So what I'd like to do is firstly introduce our guests, or basically get them to introduce themselves. And I'd like to start with Simon Rodriguez. Good evening, Simon. How are you doing?
Good evening, Nigel. I'm good. How are you going? You good?
I'm very well. That is a premiere you're in tonight, isn't it? You said.
Yes, it is.
Just for the Wi-Fi, I hope you've paid the bill. Do you just want to give a shout out for your club and maybe just a bit of a brief introduction to yourself?
For sure. My name is Simon. I'm actually part of Salisbury Online Speakers down kind of Dorset way. And I've been part of the club for, about a year and a half now. I'm part of I'm the VPE, so Vice President Education, and I also help out with the PR side of things. And yeah, at the moment I'm in Chelmsford on a work trip. So it's slightly different location than normal, but I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. And it feels like you're just across the barbed wire in District 91 then, if you're mentioning Dorset.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're all very welcome. You're all very welcome. And thank you for that. And let me move to Maria next. Maria Mann, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. And yourself, Nigel?
I'm very well, thanks. Very, very good. You're joining us from Dublin this evening?
Yes, I'm coming from Dublin and I'm part of Fingal Toastmasters here in Dublin.
Excellent. And what is it you do for a day job?
So I am a student. I'm actually studying sound engineering at the moment, but I'm also working part-time as an audio technician in a radio station. So Toastmasters really helps with even speaking on air when things go wrong and everything.
More on that later, I guess. No red light here tonight, but what do you think of the sound quality so far?
I think it's good so far. It's great.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Stick with us. Thanks so much for that, Maria. I'm going to move to James Hendricken next. Good evening, James. How are you doing?
All good, Nigel. How about yourself?
Not bad. And I think you're from the same club as Maria, are you? Got a bit of a monopoly going on here tonight?
Yes, I am indeed. Same as Maria and Fingal Toastmasters, a great club on the coast there in Dublin, Ireland. And yeah, we've been there a little while together.
Cool. Well, again, more on that a little later. And our final guest, thanks for waiting, Sachin Samangay. I've got to get that right. Sachin, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Nigel. I'm doing really well, and I think we've established that you are doing well at the moment, so I won't pass that question again.
Well, I have to say, I know one of your claims to fame is that you're the District 91 conference, the one down in Bristol earlier this year.
Yes, yeah. I've got the privilege of supporting for the last couple of weeks with them. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I was actually at that conference, and it was an excellent job. So well done. So the theme here this evening is all about, as I mentioned, the younger demographic. What brings young people into Toastmasters? What do you get from it? Why did you come in the first place? And I think I want to go with that question first and foremost to Simon. What is it that got you interested in Toastmasters at such a young age?
So at the time, I was actually wanting to pivot careers, and I do this kind of refresh every year. I look at what I've achieved in the last year and what I want to achieve in the coming year. And one of the things I really wanted to hone in on was my speech, and not only speaking in front of people, but just getting a bit more confident with networking, because I've done it for a really long time since I was young, but I've never really looked at it as a career, and I really wanted to dive into that. So I remember a few friends mentioning Toastmasters back in the day when I was a part of a couple of networking groups. And so I just really looked into it, and Salisbury Speakers was like 5-10 minutes down the road. And then it was even better that they were virtual. So, I could just hop onto one of their calls. They've been really welcoming and fantastic. So it was a really cool opportunity to dive into something that was a little bit challenging, but also, almost sew up the last two threads of making sure that my speech was as good as it possibly could be. So yeah, it was definitely more of a career.
Well, thanks for sharing that. You reminded me of a question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask it towards the end. Really interesting.
Okay, good.
You mentioned about goals. So what's your current goal at the moment through Toastmasters?
So one of the things, actually, myself and a friend, Stuart Marshall, who's part of a neighbouring club, we use each other as accountability buddies, which has been really quite fantastic to make sure that we move through the program as smoothly as we can. And I think one of the things I never really thought about was the modules and the framework that Toastmasters offers. And when we were looking at pathways, we are kind of keep each other, we're almost racing each other to get to DTM because we want to keep that momentum going. And so that is one of my goals with him at the moment, is to beat him to that point and get there before him. So he's currently beating me. We won't let him know that. So.
Element of competition, what I would say, is working in tandem with someone that's striving for something like climbing Everest, which I think DTM is considered to be.
Yeah.
Is it actually, it's like a virtuous circle, isn't it? You sort of bring each other up because you sort
100%.
of push. Yeah. So it is a bit like climbing Everest, though, isn't it, Simon? So what happens your Toastmasters career after DTM? Where do you go next?
I have no idea. First, we're going to hit DTM, and then I'll let you know.
Okay.
I need to beat him there first before I can make a decision on where to go next.
Yeah.
But I think it's really exciting because Toastmasters, it offers so much. And, you know, I didn't even think that DTM was an option. And so I think I'm just going to try and leave myself as open as I can to whatever comes up at that point. You know, you never know what's around the corner. So you might as well just leave that opportunity open and take it if it's there.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to go across to the Isle of Ireland next. We're going to go back into District 71. James, let me come to you. And what is it that brought you to Toastmasters?
Yeah, so we'd have to go back a few years. I think I was 2017 is when I joined. And I was kind of transitioning between secondary school, is what we call it over here, into like college or university. And I was doing a business degree, and I kind of knew that I'd have to do a lot of presentations. And that was kind of weighing on my mind. I should have been kind of excited going into uni, but I wasn't. So I said, look, I'll probably have to do something to address this. And then I ended up kind of asking around. I think I found a Toastmasters club on Google or whatever. I remember ringing up, and they told me I was too young because I was 17 at the time. And then I just waited the summer, and then that September I joined, and yeah, haven't looked back since.
Do you know, it's amazing you're saying that, because all the Toastmasters I ever meet, one of their biggest regrets is they never started earlier.
Yeah.
You were knocking on the door when you're actually too young. So kudos to you. And do you think you're going to stay in it forever? What keeps you at your Toastmasters club or at Toastmasters in general?
Yeah, I feel like obviously there could be travel plans and stuff like that, but I know Toastmasters, it's an international organization. But yeah, I don't think like one of the things I love about it is you can never be finished. You can always get better. And even like some of the really experienced members in my club, they're at such a high level, but like you can still see kind of slight improvements. So there's no such thing as the finished article. So yes, I think the constant improvements, like even and the paths that they have now, you mentioned about the one Simon's doing. So like I think there's enough there to keep me. And just in terms of how the meetings are and how enjoyable they are, that's what definitely keeps you coming back.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing, James. Maria, is there anything you'd like to add with regard to what brought you into Toastmasters? Maybe what you get from it?
Yes, it's funny actually. I didn't realize James was too young joining Toastmasters. I was actually in the same boat myself. So I was about 6 months before I turned 18, I was interested in Toastmasters. And when I was younger than that, then a couple of years beforehand, I loved listening into TED Talks, and I found there were some really good ones. And I had an interest in learning how to speak in public. And my dad was actually a Toastmaster for a few years before me. So he's the one who got me properly into Toastmasters. But I've really found it's made a huge difference. I'm 3 years now in Fingal, and I really, really enjoy it.
Excellent. So for most Toastmasters my age, at least, I can't think about life without Toastmasters. Is, I guess for yourself, you know, that life does get in the way of everything that Toastmasters does, generally speaking, as does a lot of other things. But do you see yourself as a a life-served Toastmaster?
Well, I would like to think that I'd be able to stay in Toastmasters for years, and I notice it's influenced so many parts of my life. Just being able to speak in public, whether it's talking to people that I don't know or if it's speaking in public. Like in my college, I'm actually on the student council. I'm the president of the student council, and I got to that role through Toastmasters. I was able to speak, so I was able to then give a speech, structure the speech well, and that's how I got in that position. So I would be speaking in public with that as well. I found Toastmasters has really helped with that. And then also on the radio station that I work in, occasionally I'm on air presenting or jumping in when somebody doesn't answer the phone. And having been in Toastmasters, I find I'm much more confident doing that, much more able to structure what to say, even if it's just a paragraph or a couple of lines. So I would like to see myself being in Toastmasters for life. I do really enjoy it, and I see that it's had a huge benefit so far in my life, and I'm only a couple of years in it.
Great. Toastmasters for life. I think that's a good rule of three, isn't it? A good example of that. Thanks so much for sharing that, Maria. And just for the benefit of some of our audience members that might be listening, I just want to pick up on a point that James made. There's actually 17,000, so there might be a few more or possibly a few less clubs, Toastmasters clubs across, I think, 145 countries or so, almost 500,000 members. And if you join one club, it does give you a passport to go and visit any of the other clubs. So maybe if you get travel plans or career breaks or relocation, all these things happen, you'll probably find you're not too far away from a Toastmasters club. Not as widespread as a McDonald's, but I would imagine where you get that, that sort of concentration of people, you're going to find a Toastmasters club. And Sachin, thanks so much for waiting. Tell us about your introduction to Toastmasters and why you went for it.
Yeah, you gave me a really good entrance point to Toastmasters, because I joined Toastmasters back in Sri Lanka in 2018, and it happened. I was kind of fall into a Toastmasters club because the company that I joined as an HR intern while I was doing my master's degree, and one of my key tasks was to make sure that the Toastmasters meetings happen on time, because the company pays for it, and then they wanted to make sure that the people comes in. It was not really popular within the organization because it is one of these places where the managers mandate the people who are not really good at communicating to get in. So whenever I go and tap into the shoulder of the people who are supposed to be in the meeting, I always get a I don't get the best response from some of them. But we had a couple of really interesting people joining and been managing that Toastmasters club for a very long time. Thanks to them, uh, the club thrived, and I think that is currently that club is one of the best clubs in Sri Lanka itself. So I had a really good first impression to Toastmasters, and from there onwards, I moved back to Bristol about 2 years ago. And then again, my boss asked me if I'm doing Toastmasters, and then I said no, I couldn't find a club. So my boss found a club for me.
Excellent.
And that's how I found it.
Well, excellent. So tell me then, Sachin, what was your very first Toastmasters meeting like? And before you answer that question, I'll just give you my broad experience. I found it quite sort of stuffy and a bit odd and a little too by the clock and a bit awkward, but maybe that was me, said more about me than it did the meeting. But I understood after 2 or 3 sessions why it was all like that. And I know that maybe even the Toastmasters name doesn't ring out to everyone about what it actually means or what it does. So for yourselves in that sort of younger catchment, what gets you into something like this that has traditionally been for retired people, professional working people? And, I just want to try and understand that sort of younger sort of routine rather, and what your experience of your first Toastmasters meeting was like. Long question, I know. And maybe what was your biggest takeaway from it?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of Toastmasters is for the more established people, is quite unique to this area part of the world, because I even looked up the numbers. Apparently in Sri Lanka and in India and the South Asian region, the average age is around 35. So it's a much younger crowd. And even in here, I find lots of younger people joining into the clubs at the moment. Even in my club, we've got a bunch of young people. And it's that mixture that always keeps me going, because if I want to just be with younger audiences. I can do many other things. But this Toastmasters Club brings on different demographics of people, and it's really, really inclusive. And make them all a similar platform where they can engage. And they don't even consider about the diversities that they have. What I meant by not consider means it's not the part that they acknowledge on. It's about everything that people puts together is what is where we build upon. So that's the nice thing that I found about Toastmasters. And my very first impression itself was really impressive. As I told you, I was put onto it, not by my will, but then I stayed back for like 6-7 years now, and I'm still really active with Toastmasters. And I'm really lucky that I got that opportunity at that moment.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. And I made a comparison to McDonald's earlier. I mean, other fast food restaurants are available, but I always used to like to use the example that, you know, wherever you go in the world to a McDonald's restaurant, before you even walk through the door, you know what the experience is going to be like, you know what the quality of the food is going to be like, you know what the cleanliness of the facilities are going to be, you know, all the branding looks like. You just know what to expect. And my experience traveling the world, albeit virtually, into Toastmasters clubs has been very, very similar. Only a few nuances, which actually are quite unique. But you bring all that good learning back to your own club. But anyway, thanks for sharing that, Sachin. Simon, it looks like your Premier Inn network package is still working this evening. So I'd just like to move to you and say, you know, what was your experience of your first Toastmasters meetings like? Because it clearly gave you the hook to keep going. What was it about the first meeting that said something here for me?
It's a great question. Firstly, I would just like to say it's not the Wi-Fi. I'm actually hotspotting from my phone. So thank goodness for technology. My experience was, I think, very different to some people because Salisbury speakers are predominantly online. We are kind of introducing on in-person meetings every now and then, but I think to be thrown into the online kind of world for those meetings was quite a lot of fun because it still has the same apprehension even if you were in person because you don't know these people, you're not sure what to expect. I'd never done anything like Toastmasters before, and so I kind of just held my breath and threw myself into it. You know, I remember one of the initial things which I think that my club do really well, is the welcoming of the guest immediately makes you feel like you're part of the group already. It's very seldom that we get somebody that's not feeling the vibe. It's, you know, I think every guest that we've had for a very long time has kind of sung our praises on how well we welcome them in. And for myself, I've very much experienced that. And so to kind of be part of the Salisbury Speakers family immediately felt really good. And to realize that every person there was wanting you to get better, that was really cool. There's this idea of, you know, they're going to judge you, or if you say something wrong, or if you don't do table topics, what is table topics? You know, to have all these phrases kind of thrown at you and feeling kind of out of depth, but then having these guys go, you're good. You're in a really safe place. This is how you do it. This is an example. You've got this. Don't worry about how it comes out. Just flow with it. That was so much fun. And I think that's what kept me going back to Salisbury Speakers. They're incredibly supportive. And I've experienced in-person meetings with larger clubs and obviously the conference as well. And that inclusive, very supportive energy I feel with every club. It's obviously slightly different, you know, how it's run and how the people are. But that supportive network is just really cool. I mean, how could you possibly learn in a better environment than with people that want to help you progress, grow, and get better?
Do you know, that's a wonderful answer, because it speaks to me as well, actually, Simon, because everybody knows you come to Toastmasters to speak. Everybody knows you come to become a better leader. Everybody knows you come to be a better listener. But what I actually find about Toastmasters is what you encapsulated in that beautiful answer. For me, it's about community as well, surrounded by like-minded people that allow you to grow. And not very often in most other aspects of life do you get a community like that. And I think everything you've echoed, I certainly recognised even when I joined many years later than you guys. And that's one of the key things that still keeps me there. Well, thank you for that. And James, I want to move on to you and just ask you, what involvement did you have in your very first Toastmasters meeting?
Oh, what involvement? Yeah, so I actually remember walking in the door and not knowing anyone, and kind of squeezing down the back. So hopefully I wouldn't be picked on, because I didn't know that guests aren't called upon to speak. So I thought I could have been throwing myself into the deep end. But then the topics session came along, and some topic came up. I can't remember what it was now, but I put up my hand and I stood up and I gave an answer. Well, when I say gave an answer, I blurted out a few words. It probably didn't make any sense. And then anyway, I sat back down, and then at the end of the meeting, they gave out the Topics Cup, and I didn't have the best answer, but they gave me the award. Just as it was a nice gesture. So ever since that, I had to bring the trophy back the next week. So I'd say that's what got me back the following week.
Excellent. That's really good. Actually, you pick up on a really great point there about reward and recognition. You know, the feedback element in Toastmasters is, you know, you can't measure it because it's so powerful to you. And when you get that feedback from trusted advisors around you in the club, it's so powerful. So thanks for that, because most people, you know, first time out table topics, you know, quivering wreck, or actually don't say anything, but you got involved straight from the off. And moving to yourself, Maria, I won't ask you the same question as everybody else, but how long did it take you from your first meeting to do your icebreaker, would you say?
It actually didn't take me too long, Nigel, if I remember right now. I can't fully remember exactly how long, but I remember giving my icebreaker. It was only a little while after joining. I turned 18, I remember, in the August, and then joined in September. And I'd say by October, I had given my icebreaker already. I'd say even middle of October, start of October. And there was a contest, an evaluation contest on in one of the other clubs, and they were looking for a test speaker. So I went and gave a similar, more improved speech in that club then as well, online this was. So it was quite soon that I got straight into it. And I think in the first few months, I gave plenty of speeches, even in the first year, 2 years, and then life started getting busier, and I've been given a bit less speeches, but I really enjoy it. But I got straight in. I had the time as well, so I got straight in and practice, and then just some bullet points on the sheet, knowing what to go to. And I used to use little timers as well, so I'd have the timer in front of me on my phone, and I'd write down my speech. At this point, I should be about 2 minutes. So if I'm at 2.5 minutes, I know that I'm going a little bit too slow, or at 1.5 minutes, I know I'm speeding through and need to slow it down and extend maybe what I'm saying a little bit more. So I did get straight into it, and I think that that's the best thing to do in some ways. The longer you leave it, the longer you wait, the more your nerves start building up, and it's so hard to just go for it then. But if you go straight into it, you don't know anyone. It's like, okay, even if I make a huge mess, it's not the end of the world. I don't know any of these people. I can leave and never come back.
That's right. No one's died, have they? No one's died. And again, another really important point. I mean, there's a certain amount you can learn by osmosis, if you like, in a Toastmasters meeting, i.e. learning from others' experience. But there's no real substitute for getting involved yourself. And you touched on something really important there, certainly close to my heart, because my Toastmasters career really accelerated when I started going into contests. So maybe if you could just share what going into contests did for you on your Toastmasters journey.
Yes, of course. The first contest that I did, I was saying for the evaluation contest, I was the test speaker. So I wasn't actually in that contest. I entered then the international speech contest once I reached pathway level 2. You have to have at least that level. So I couldn't go in the first year. I think the second year I went in. And also I entered, I think, 2 table topics contests. And one of the times I actually went through to, what's it? Not club level, the next one, area level.
Area.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't actually win it. It was just the first place couldn't make it. So I stood in then, and second, I think I came fourth, and first, second, and third couldn't make it. So I ended up, even though I came fourth, I ended up standing in then in the area. Wow. And it's great to have that experience, to be speaking alongside much more experienced members and listening to them, learning from them. And even the international speech contest, I found that was great. And the standard was really high among all the speakers. And I didn't enter to win. Like I knew that I was a good bit behind the rest of the speakers. And even if I gave a brilliant speech, and even if I won, that wasn't the reason that I entered it. I just entered for the fun, for the crack, and I thought it was really fun. It's just that excitement. It gives you that buzz, even though you might be at a much lower level. It's that excitement that I really enjoy.
Thanks. That's such a great experience. And Sachin, I'll come to you now, because actually, as I mentioned earlier, I know you were the maestro, the orchestrator around the District 91 conference in Bristol early this year. I was there, privileged enough to see the international speech finals. And from my perspective, I think there were 8 of them, were top notch and could easily have won. But do you get engaged in contests yourself? And if so, what have your big takeaways been?
Yeah, just to start with, I wasn't even close to being a maestro at the district conference. It was Simon and Amy and all the other people did all that. I was just supporting towards the last bit of the organization. But yeah, when it comes to competitions, I've been a part of a couple of competitions back in Sri Lanka, where I managed to get into, I think, the division level during the COVID time. So it was all online. And in here, I still didn't get the opportunity to do that because I joined last year, and this year I'm VPE, so I'm tasked with organizing the competitions rather than participating in them. But the overall lesson that I got is, when I speak to people who've been to all these contests, each of them have different targets by joining a contest, and it's never the same. When I talk to someone like Dhananjay Hettiar, actually, their plan is to go and win, and as he did. But if I speak to someone in my club or someone around, their part is to just maybe to go just beyond the club and to see what everyone else has to offer. Or for someone else, just for the fun, just to meet people, because you already meet the people in the club, but what else is out there? And for some people, it's just a good grounding exercise for them to figure out that there are much better speakers out there, so that they can come back and work on their skills. I think I fall to the last stage of all of that, because when you keep on practicing the same speech again and again and again, you feel like, oh, this is a really good speech, turning out to be a really good speech. But when you go there and you present and you see all these amazing other speakers, not only you get to learn from them, you also know where the bar is, so that you can keep on pushing yourself. And that's the biggest takeaway for me, to be part of all these contests.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sachin. Simone, could I move to you next? I'll just give you a chance to unmute there. Talk about contests if you like, but I just want to explore a different theme of Toastmasters. Every time in my clubs, I say to my members, do what you're doing, but don't always do it inside the club. Do it outside, do it at a different club. That's where Toastmasters really comes to life. So maybe it's experiences at another club, maybe it's experiences at the area or district level, but how has Toastmasters really helped you outside of your club?
That's a great question. It's actually funny because I joined Toastmasters for Toastmasters to affect my life in a really positive way. And actually what it's done is strengthen my desire for networking and learning from people. And I think that is really bleeding beautifully into my life at the moment. And I think it's one of the things I absolutely love about life is the compound effect of the decisions that you make before you right now, and how they've brought you to this moment. And so Toastmasters has created a really fantastic network of people for me to lean onto, learn from. And likewise, from my work and from my life, developing the confidence to come back into Toastmasters, to, go into things like the mentorship program and pushing myself that way has been really, really enjoyable. So I'm really enjoying the kind of seesaw effect that I'm getting from both sides, that I was feeding into each of them. It's really quite exciting. So I could talk about it for ages, but I think I'll leave with that because otherwise I'll carry on.
It's interesting because the question I was going to ask later, I think I'm going to ask you now, because certainly you've mentioned about being a member of an online club. Certainly through the way you speak, you've got that affinity. You like to have people around you more for that social aspect and that connection piece. So my question to you is, online or in person?
Ooh, good sir. What a question.
It was a close question. So yeah, either or would do, but you could expand a little bit.
I don't think I can choose, mainly because I love in person, right? If I'm at a networking event or if I'm at a conference, there's nothing that's going to beat the buzz of being around people, having the opportunity to sit, have a conversation, connecting with someone like Sachin, and really you are going to always absorb more from people when they're close proximity, right? You're going to have that opportunity. But that being said, we are in a world of technology. We are all working virtually. Certainly events of 2020 pushed us into a more virtual world. And so I think that I'm fortunate enough to have best of both. I love learning how to be predominantly online. I've learned some really cool skills being part of, being Sergeant at Arms for the club, and how to manage something virtually. And likewise going, okay, cool, everything in life is transferable. So how do I apply what I've learned online to being in person? And likewise, just because you network really well and you meet people really well in person, it doesn't mean that you're going to be, stagnant online. I think if you are able to translate who you are as a person through the virtual world, it's just going to strengthen you in many, many ways. So I am very fortunate to have best of both. I can't choose. I think I'd probably lean more towards in person because I do like learning from people that way. But I think, you cannot knock virtual. I think people have a bit of a worry when it comes to an online club that you're not going to get that warm, fuzzy feeling, but you really do. It's fantastic. It's if you haven't tried it, give it a go, because I think you'll learn more from it than you actually think you will.
That's absolutely true. And I think, tonight's going to be no exception for me, at least. I always feel better at the end of a Toastmasters session than when I first arrived. So you go on that sort of improvement journey and just get those happy chemicals flowing. But thank you so much for sharing that. Maria, I'm going to move to you next. And what do you think has been your biggest sliding doors moment? And what I mean by that is, what's been the biggest aha moment for you from your Toastmasters journey?
Well, I think one of the major things that really, really got me going and wanting to go to Toastmasters more was after I delivered my first speech. And with that, there was that excitement and buzz of giving the speech. And of course, there's always going to be some sort of mistakes or some sort of improvements. But afterwards, the encouragement from people, like the evaluations, there was so much encouragement. And there was 2 or 3 suggestions maybe, and that was all. And the rest was encouragement. And that just kept me going. I just wanted to do my next speech. I couldn't wait to do my next one. And that's why I got started so soon on my next speech. It was only the space of maybe 2 or 3 meetings before I get my next speech after that.
And how long did you have that buzz of excitement surrounding you after your first speech? Did it last for a few days, did it?
I don't know if it lasted a few days. Like, it lasted a few hours anyway. And then after that, it probably faded. But going to the next Toastmasters meeting, then that excitement was there. It came back each time then for each consecutive meeting after that.
That's interesting you say it, because I often talk about Toastmasters as being a legal drug or a legal high because of how it makes people feel. But thanks so much for sharing that. And maybe, Maria, what would you say to someone who perhaps has heard about Toastmasters, doesn't really understand it? How would you encourage them to come there? Maybe if it was one of your peers or your friends?
I'd say if they're anyway nervous about speaking in public or talking to people, if there was a room of 10 people, say I'm in college, if they were going to give a presentation in front of the class, then would they feel nervous about that? How much would they be panicked? Would their face be really red afterwards? Would they be all sweaty and hands shaking, which many people were during presentations in college? Then I'd say to them, why not come along? You'll be much more confident. You'll realize how to speak, how to structure, whether it's a presentation or a speech or just talking about some project. It really helps you to understand how to do that. And once you have that understanding, you can then be more confident and be more relaxed when speaking. So I'd say to them to come along and give it a try, because I think it'll really help anybody any young person especially, who'd like to come and join.
And how often have you done that?
How often have I done that? I have invited maybe 3 or 4 of my friends, and so far none of them have come along. But I'm still trying. I'm still chipping away. There's still people I'm inviting, And when I say 3 or 4 friends, 3 or 4 peers around my age, give or take a few years, I've invited others as well who would be an older age bracket, and still none of them have really come along. Unfortunately, I mustn't be making it too appealing, unfortunately, but I'll keep trying.
Well, the thing is, it's all individual, isn't it? And Toastmasters has to speak to you sort of metaphorically, and you have to sort of make a habit for it. But, you know, one day they may come back. They may come back. But thank you for sharing. Thanks for waiting, James. I'm going to come to you now. And I just want to talk about your most memorable moments in Toastmasters, or maybe your funniest moments. And just give you an example. I was contest chair at the Division E. I think it was International Speech Contest. It was this year sometime. I can't remember when it was actually. Mm-hmm. And normally when you do the interviews of the contestants, I was talking to this guy. Old name his name was Prince Aqua. Turned out to be the winner. Really great guy from Leicester City Speakers. And as I was talking to him, I said, "Oh, do you want to give a shout out for your club?" Without hesitating, he just said, "Arsenal." And I said, no, your Toastmasters club. Oh yeah, it's Leicester City. I don't know what area it's in, and all this, but it's so funny. And just brought the room down. And so fun for me is a great leveler. It gets everyone on the same page. It makes people feel good. Tell us, James, what are your most memorable moments from all the meetings or club events or wherever it may be in your Toastmasters career that really stand out to you?
Yeah, there is a lot of moments that would stand out, Nigel. And I suppose it's going back to your previous point of like the perception of Toastmasters. People thinking it's boring, it's stuffy. I know someone said to me they thought it was like a lot of old lads reading poetry, but it is far from that. There's a lot of fun. We have our topic session with there's tons of humor, and then there's the humor speeches and stuff like that. And we've so many funny members that I can't even go into. I can't even go on to name them. But in terms of the most memorable moment, I'd say it would be going back a few years when I did my 10th speech. So for the newer members, before the Pathways program, we had the Competent Communicator Manual. And you have to give 10 speeches. And that was similar to some of the goals we mentioned earlier. It's kind of in your head for an awful long time. And I was coming up towards the end, and I think I did my 9th speech, which is the second last one. And it didn't go so well, and I wasn't too happy with how I delivered it or whatever. And then I sat down next to Ted Corcoran, who's a past international president, and we sat for 10 minutes, and he gave me the outline for my 10th and final speech. And just with 10 minutes of wisdom, we almost wrote an entire speech, and it came back and gave the 10th one, and it went much better. So I'd say that's definitely the highlight for me, Nigel.
Oh, thank you. And what a mentor to have, by the way, as well. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because very often it's the speech you prepared, the speech you gave, and then on reflection, the speech you wish you'd given. And I think, to be honest, every Toastmaster goes through that particular process. But it's all continuous improvement, isn't it? Or I think Kaizen, as the Japanese coin that. But thanks, James, for sharing that. Maybe, Sachin, is there a memorable moment you want to share with us from your career so far? You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to get that in. I was going to get that in at least once.
Yeah, at least once. Yeah, I've got that out. And Toastmasters, I think there are so many memorable moments, and most of the things that comes to my mind are happening just after the meeting is concluded, because it's always the fun bit happens. The most interesting bit happens after the meeting is done, where you hang around with people, have a chat, and then have that fun, and that brings out that whole community element. And I mean, back in Sri Lanka, my club was pretty laid back, and it was all our colleagues that we were working, and then we used to go to a pub and then have a chat there. So I think the highlight for me in most of the meetings is how supportive all of them, even after the meeting. It's not just because people mandate, or the Toastmasters mandate you to be constructively criticized on the content, and then you support them because that's the structure of the Toastmasters. That's not the case. People come to Toastmasters, have a shared vision of improving themselves and supporting your peers to improve themselves as well. And that reflects beyond the club. and that is one of the reasons why we get together here as well. Like none of us knew each other, or at least most of us didn't know each other before before this, or at least before the district conference, and we made that connection, and it just keeps going. And the district conference, when did that happen? I can't even remember. When was it? Like a couple of months ago, for definitely.
Yeah, it was
Same
about March, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
May
I
was-
think it was. Yes,
It
yeah, in
was
May.
last year. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's like it was.
I'll tell you when part of it was, Sachin. It was May the 4th, because I remember
May.
making that comment. For
Oh
all
yeah,
small-
yes, it was May. Yeah, and yeah. See, I mean, we are still in contact. We're still good friends, and we can call each other for support like this. So that's the part that I really cherish.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. And I can't leave this question, Simon, without coming to you. I saw you attentively listening there. I'm sure you've worked up your most memorable event from your Toastmasters journey so far.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, you haven't, have you?
I haven't, no, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hoping for a curveball question.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Let's change the question a little bit before. I'm
Okay.
going to go to the audience in just a moment, but let's finish with yourself, Simon. So how long have you been a Toastmasters member for now in total?
I think I signed my membership in like June of 23. So last year, June. So it's
very recent. Okay.
Yeah.
So we touched on some of these themes already, but you know, you mentioned you go to an online club. You do some in person as well. Just trying to explain to some of the audience people, what is it that brings you? Where do you get that passion from that gets you to come back every week or every 2 weeks to sort of go through the same process and have the same amount of fun and all the rest of it? What is it that drives you for that?
My initial answer is that there is a twofold answer to. There's a personal development side of it. There is something that I'm getting out of it almost selfishly. There's a goal that I have in mind for myself outside of Toastmasters that keeps me coming back, keeps me wanting to learn more, keeps me wanting to be out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't know if my internet has dropped out. It's back. Okay.
No, yeah. Be comfortable being uncomfortable, basically.
Yeah, I love you. That's where good growth happens, right? You're never going to really grow inside your comfort zone. I feel like we all know that by now. But my club is great. It's really versatile. And I think what Sachin said hit the nail on the head. That humor and that camaraderie after your club meeting, and you've got this moment to really get personal and learn about these people. And what you realize is that these guys have got so much knowledge outside of Toastmasters. They've got their personal lives that brings knowledge to you. And so why not really throw yourself into a pond of knowledge from all different aspects of life, and speaking to the younger generations as well as the older ones, you're going to learn some crazy things. And I think one of the most beautiful things is through table topics, for instance, where you have such a short span of time to talk, you can learn some really funny ways of getting through conversation. And for me, it's twofold. You want to get to know yourself a little bit better, throw yourself into the deep end and be a little bit uncomfortable. But also I want to get to know these people. They've got such cool stories to share, and why not surround myself with a community that wants that development? So it's for me, it's about being around like-minded people at the end of the day. And it's brought nothing but fantastic growth and a lot of laughter and some really good memories so far. So I'm excited to see, and like I said, my journey in Toastmasters is really tiny in comparison to you guys. And I can't believe how much I've done in 1 year, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So yeah, oodles of opportunity.
Excellent. One thing I'll share is that possibly in my Toastmaster speeches over the years, I've been a Toastmaster just shy of 6 years now, that I've probably overshared and sort of said things in my speeches that I haven't shared with my nearest and dearest for no other reason than that trust bubble that I'm in. So I just want to quickly go around the room. It's just a yes or a no. And I want to go to that question in just one moment. Thanks for throwing it up. Yes or no, have you overshared in your Toastmaster speeches? And I'll go to Sachin first.
Yes and no. I haven't shared stuff that I haven't shared with anyone. Like there were a couple of stories that I shared with my mom and like my nearest and dearest, which I never planned to share in a public space, which I did.
Okay, cool. And yeah, all the names have gone now, but I do know it's Simon, so I'll go back there next. And it's just a closed question, so it's just a yes or a no. I'm just
Yes.
curious. If it's just me. Okay, fine. Thanks. We're on the same page. Yes, and Maria.
Not particularly. Similar
Not-
to
Level of it. Okay.
yes, some of the other members. Yes and no, similar to Sachin.
Okay. And James.
Yes, certain aspects.
Good man. Good man. Good man. Okay, we'll talk about those later. I'll ask you a question on that. Olga, I know you threw a question up earlier. That's great. We're just going to go to the audience now for the next 5 minutes or so. So, anybody want to take this particular question? Maybe Maria, James, you're sort of earlier on in your career with this. I know you were on the old system as well, James. How did you find that transition? And is it a barrier, or do people just grasp it and move with it? How does it?
Yeah. So,
in your experience?
Yeah, I would have been involved when it was kind of first brought in, and I kind of sat back and listened, and there was a little bit of friction from the older members who some of them kind of questioned the change, and now change isn't easy for anyone. And then I saw Pathways come in, and I think when you have a system in place for so long, it's always going to take a bit of time. And I could kind of see that there was a transition period, as you may know. And I think it took a couple of years for like full buy-in and for everyone to sign up. But I think the Pathways journey is great. It's more kind of customized. I think it's more kind of career orientated. It can be. Certainly I found that myself. So yeah, getting on well with the Pathways journey, and I can see why it's changed, and I'm enjoying the new one. Yeah.
Cool, excellent. And Maria, did you start on Pathways, or were you on the old system as well?
Yes, I began on Pathways. I have heard from most of the members in our club that the old system is much better, but I've found Pathways to be all right. It's not too bad. At the start, it was quite confusing trying to use the website, especially. But Pathways itself.
So many, isn't it? Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. No, I did find it confusing at the start, mainly the website, but the system itself seems to be working all right for me.
Cool. And what would you say was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome on Pathways?
I think the biggest hurdle, once I figured out how to use the website, it wasn't too bad. The speeches, in some ways, like there was some that were a little bit difficult. I found the research speech a little bit difficult. I don't know if it was the end of the first level of Pathways or the start, maybe the second one, but I found that quite difficult because I wasn't used to giving that style of speech as much. So it was learning how to structure and deliver a different style of speech. So it's a good challenge, but at the same time it can be difficult to try and complete.
And how many Pathways have you done so far?
Oh, now let me think. I think I've finished level 2. I think I'm on level 3, maybe near the end of level 3. I can't exactly remember. Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, I'm just going to cut straight to Simone now, because you probably got a very specific answer for that particular question, Simone, if you're on your DTM journey. So have you completed 2 yet, or is that on your goal list of things to do?
It is still on my goal of list. I'm on level 3 of my first pathway at the moment. So yeah, I've still got a little while to go, but enjoying the journey. It's definitely something to navigate, though. I would completely agree with Maria.
And to be fair, I mean, you're just over a year into your Toastmasters journey, and to be on a level 3 after that stage is pretty impressive, I have to say.
Okay.
So kudos and well done. Sachin, was there any comment you wanted to make about Pathways at all?
Nothing in particular. I was going to say even securing the spots in meetings within 1 year to go to level 3 is quite impressive, Simon.
Definitely. Oh, we've got another question coming up. I'm just saying, Finbar, I trust that did answer your question. Let me just take a moment to read this one. How would you see Toastmasters fitting in at college level alongside organisations such as debating or European Youth Parliament? Anybody got any history, knowledge of either of those type of things you want to make a comment on?
You go ahead, someone first. Yeah. No, I've did a bit of British parliamentary since I moved in here, and I wouldn't say there's a clear distinction between the two in terms of the way you speak and the style you speak and the way you think. It's quite different. But the common thing that lies across any speaking platform is whatever that comes with it, like the confidence that you build and the feedback that you get. It's mostly the same. I'd say the British parliamentary style, at least the ones that I've experienced at the university level, is much more brutal when it comes to giving feedback, in contrast to the Toastmasters one, where you have good and the bad shared, so you are encouraged to speak. But it's really different. But I would say there can be some connections in terms of developing the confidence and the generic ones.
Excellent, thank you. And Simone?
So I don't have particular experience in the kind of debating or that kind of youth parliament, but I am actually looking into getting the youth program set up down kind of Dorset way and Hampshire way. So the youth program that Toastmasters does offer, I think, is a really good example of how you can use Toastmasters in a school setting. And so it's almost a condensed version of Toastmasters, but you would do them in schools for kids anywhere between the ages of 14 to 16, depending on what the school will allow. So I think that is a really fantastic injection of Toastmasters initially, and I think it'd be really beneficial. And that's why I'm very keen on getting that started, because if I think of myself when I was that age, having something like Toastmasters to give you that grounding, that experience, and that confidence to stand up in front of people, especially when you're just about to hit university stage. I was doing auditions at the time, and to have that additional grounding would have been fantastic. So I think something like the youth program expanded would be, I think, a really fantastic start if you wanted to look at it a little bit more in the college level.
Tell us more about the auditions.
I was a dancer and a singer, so I was more performing arts, so it's slightly different auditions, but yes, I was a dancer at the time.
Well, it's interesting because in the two clubs I mentioned earlier, Boring Speakers and PMI UK Changemakers, I've had authors, serial YouTubers, I've had an X Factor contestant, radio show hosts, and very similar, Maria, to maybe the sort of role that you're in, the people putting their skills out into the world for what best exemplifies what Toastmasters is all about. So I know you can do a bit of song and dance then, Simone. That's great. You'll be great at one of the warm-ups or one of the cots or something like that.
No, they've tried to rope me into that. I'm not doing
I'll just come up with a question. Oh, interesting. And we'll use this as a final question before we do a final wrap-up. So, James, what could you not have done without Toastmasters, do you think?
Good question, Olga. I suppose a lot. It has benefited me a lot. Obviously, going back to kind of link back to the previous question in terms of college. When I entered college, obviously I was dreading doing those presentations, and then by the end, I didn't mind doing them, or like I'd kind of volunteer and stuff like that. So that from like a college standpoint, and I suppose that's kind of gone into my career, and I work in sales, so I use my voice and have to give presentations and demos and stuff like that. So that it's definitely benefited. In terms of what I could not have done without Toastmasters, I remember a very tangible example early on when I was at a mass for a family member, and I was asked to do I think it was a prayer or something like that. And a couple of years previous, I had said no, and then I'd started Toastmasters, and then I said yeah. So standing up in front of your friends and family, that's one thing that it has directly benefited me.
Great, thank you for sharing. Maria, same question. Although it's disappeared, I trust you can remember it.
Yes, I remember it. What could I have not done without Toastmasters? To choose one thing specifically, I mentioned near the start that I'm on the student council. I'm the president of the student council in my college. And when that started, there was an election for class rep, and I was voted as class rep. And at the first class rep meeting, then they said, okay, you have to vote in your council now. And they said, who wants to go for whatever? There was 7 roles. So who wants to go for president, vice president? And I said, sure, I'll put my hand up. Why not? It might be fun. I probably won't get it, but why not? And I put my hand up, and then they took note of everybody who said they wanted to go for that role. I think there was about 5 or 6 people who wanted to go for president. And they said, everybody who's going for president, you have to give a speech. So I was given about 3 minutes notice, and I had nothing prepared. And I just thought in my head, okay, what are the 3 major points that I want to get across to people? And I thought of a starting and an ending that would round back to the start. And I went up and spoke, and I've been the president now of the Student Council for 2 years. So I really don't think I could have done that without having Toastmasters.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. And you can tell that's a genuine response, because when your face lit up when you were answering that question, you were smiling, you're really positive about what you were saying. It really came across in there with utter conviction. So thanks for that. Now, we are coming to the end here. I have got one final question for all of you. Before we get to that point, I just want to give a real big shout out to Olga Byrne and to Angela Afiji for setting up this wonderful webinar here this evening. It was episode 2 of Toastmasters District 71 Unplugged, and it was all about the youth of Toastmasters. What is it that gets young people involved, engaged into Toastmasters? And I trust that the audience here tonight, you've got some amazing takeaways. But my final question, and it is, I just want 3 words off each of you, because we love the rule of 3 in Toastmasters. So to round this all off, and Sachin, I want to come to you first. Describe Toastmasters using 3 words.
Oh, well, I wish I prepared for this.
You've used them all up.
I'd say interesting, friendly, progressive.
Thank you. James?
Encouraging. Can I use the same word Sachin used?
No.
No. I call trademark on it.
Positive evaluation.
Thank you. And Maria?
Go for it.
Go for it. Excellent. And Simone?
Supportive, funny, engaging.
Excellent. And can you just give yourself a big round of applause, because you're all doing a great job here this evening. So thank you so much for coming here and taking part. Yeah, take part. Give some waves. A round of applause. This has been episode 2, as I've said. Thank you so much to Sachin, to Simone, to James and Maria. I'll hand back to the outro now. Olga, it's all yours. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. See you on episode 3. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.